I sat down the last dong of
Yeah,
time.
I felt a little like Cinderella running in.
There you go. This is the time for our first public comment period. Anybody wishing to speak before us? I don't see anybody, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the August 11th, 2025 meeting?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Very good. Philip, we'll start with you with old business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the item before you today is a consideration to discontinue participation in the FCDA grant program for the fire station redevelopment project. As you know, we were awarded grant monies from the FCDA to pursue redevelopment of the fire station property into a food truck park. The DDA did instruct staff to perform a pilot project at Shamrock Park prior to ascertain the feasibility and success of a food truck park prior to investing into the grant award and our funding into a purpose-built facility. So I'd like to kind of go over with you the pilot project, kind of what we've experienced. We're still going to run it for the next week or so before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's kind of when it ends, so we're not completely done, but I think we've gathered enough information from that pilot project to kind of give you an accurate picture of what's occurred. So some of these statistics we had over the course of this period, which was 38 different meal times. So it was a couple of weeks running from September until the end of November here, of lunch and dinner for Friday and Saturday is when we had it open. We had 15 unique food truck vendors. So far, we've had 72% food truck participation, which is pretty good. So that means at least one mealtime, or there was at least one food truck at any offered mealtime. So it's 27 out of the 38 mealtimes thus far have been have had food truck participation. An average of about 10 meals served per truck. So not a terribly large amount. The average food truck response experience rating was about a 3 out of 5 from our survey. And the number one food truck request was that there would be more people and fewer trucks. So that was the number one thing. We had a couple, especially starting out, a couple of food truck. We have a total of 4 spaces that we allowed to be part of the pilot program. And anytime we had over 2, it seemed like there was just not enough people to actually, sustain those trucks. I will say, just in talking to them and kind of we had some qualitative questions at the end, most of the food trucks wanted it to continue in some fashion. Even though their overall experience was a 3 out of 5. They liked the location, they liked the fact that there were bathrooms there, we were able to provide trash service. The customer satisfaction for those food trucks was always a 5 out of 5, their experience at the event. So people enjoyed their time there as far as the food trucks could tell. I did have a customer feedback survey, but I only got 2 responses out of that. But both of them were good. It's just not enough to really, generate, significant profitable revenue for any of the food trucks if there are more than really 2 there. And really, when we're talking about 2, it can't be 2 that are competing for dinner. It needs to be like a dessert truck and a meal truck, That's really kind of how it needs to be in terms of talking to them. So that number of people, it makes it difficult, to really say out of the pilot program that there's enough there to put a lot of money into a purpose-built facility. Especially if we're talking about there's success with it, but it's really only for 1 food truck at a time, maybe 2 if they're different enough. So that's kind of the summary of activity. Staff's suggestion is that we do not pursue a redevelopment of the fire station property at 937 Sonoy Road with that money. I do suggest that we continue the food truck pop-up seasonally. It seems like if we, actually scale it down and do 1 or 2 food trucks at a time, we allow that flexibility, that we can continue to have food trucks at the park under the kind of DDA umbrella in terms of, just something that we're offering. I don't believe that the town would have any issue with food trucks being in the park on a more regular basis. Not to mention that our next phase of Shamrock Park, what we're gonna be doing, is going to improve the park with potential, more purpose-built spaces for food trucks. So, I think that they would be served well by the park itself. And the park provides, a certain level of entertainment, there's, activities, there's walking, there's, the playground, things like that. So ultimately, I do recommend that we discontinue this current application for the FCDA grant program. They did give us an initial seed amount of $50,000 to get started. We have not touched that money. So this does include giving that money back to them, which is fairly simple and straightforward. And then the next topic, I have it under staff comments, but we can discuss it really at any time, is what do we do from here? Because I wouldn't be suggesting, stopping the grant program without any potential ideas of where to go from here. So I do have some talking points on that as well. But any questions about this current action, just stopping the grant and kind of ceasing the activity for a food truck park?
I don't have an issue with that. I like the idea of being able to continue having some activity there with the food trucks there, and it's a great segue into phase 2, if you will, of the Shamrock renovation, where those food trucks can then have a spot for there, and like to see people get used to get them there. Now, we're still not charging them anything, right?
No,
Okay.
this whole time, we did not charge them anything. I don't believe that we would until it got into such a regular form that, we really had crowds of people or significant number of people that were attending for that purpose. I think it would just be something that is limited in its availability. We're really only allowing 1 or 2 trucks and, first come, first serve, but no charge.
I think the fact that we're offering that and have something for the people is the main thing.
Sure.
I think they get used to, once they get used to seeing, okay, every Friday and Saturday, there's a food truck,
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not getting that significant drive-by traffic. So
Yeah,
people
it's-
just aren't aware.
And that was something that that they had told me, was that some that had participated from the beginning towards the end here, they started to see more people over time because it was just more people that were aware of the fact that this was going on. But yeah, it's not necessarily that, people are seeing food trucks and stopping. That's happened a couple of times, but it's not the main driver of people that are going.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Adam?
Well, as far as dropping the grant, what are the ideas coming up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as, I guess none of the ideas involve that grant,
Right, yeah. I mean, so the ideas can involve the grant, and I'm happy to kind of move forward to that part of the discussion if you'd like, before we take a final vote on this. But really, I think that in terms of where we are situated in terms of our bank balance and what we can do feasibly, and what we can do with the property, I think my recommendation is one of 2 different directions. It's either a direct sale of the property, really kind of no strings attached sale, where we take that money for full market value, that we take that money and we allow that property to develop under kind of, the development regulations of downtown. And we take that money and we do something with it, or we pursue a ground lease for the property, where we retain control of the property, we enter into a ground lease. There are a lot of, terms that kind of go with that, but that is something where we can still retain control and development control of the property. We would do something very similar to what we did at the very beginning of this process, either go out with an RFP or try and partner directly with a private development partner to enter into a ground lease where they have a development agreement, they show us what they're building, they have different phases and steps of approval, very similar to what we did prior, except we're not leveraging money, we're leveraging the land as the piece of that puzzle. So that's a ground lease option. If we did a direct sale of the property, given how much we could potentially get for the property, which I think would be around maybe 200,000, 150, 200,000 for the property, we could take that money, and I would suggest us investigating what's called a revolving loan fund, which is a unique power of DDAs to be able to do. And there are a lot of different partnering organizations at the Georgia Department of Community Affairs level that they will match a lot of revolving loan fund programs, and that's something that we can offer to the local businesses downtown, our small scale, low interest loans that are on a revolving basis as they get paid. And again, that doesn't take a whole lot of upfront capital from us, especially if we're able to sell the property. It'll require, of course, that capital, but it doesn't require anything before that other than us working through the legal ramifications of getting that type of program started. I think both of those would be they could be very beneficial options for the town going forward. And it kind of gets the DDA into the redevelopment activities again in a very direct way, and limited exposure to the DDA as well.
Just as an aside sorry guys, you also are a DDA. So whoever you sell the property to, if that's your final decision, you also have the ability to say, hey, you can go through the tax exempt bond process and we can help you finance whatever you build, tax-free. If you sell it, that's just an incentive for a future buyer to build more than they maybe would have before. But bonds are in it, yeah.
Does that work as well if we lease the property for what they build?
No, the bonds, you would sell the property to a private buyer, and the private buyer would then come to us and ask us to issue bonds. Now, the way that system works, we would then kind of own the property for a period of about 10 years, and it would look like a lease. It's called a phantom bond because it's all very on paper only. However, we would look like the owner of the property for that period of time.
What kind of
But-
bond is that?
And it's a tax exempt bond to do
Oh,
the
okay.
development. And the reason that we would have to be the holder of the property is because we're tax exempt. And so then whatever he puts on that property would then go through a schedule of escalating tax payments. It's very common, and it is one of those things that's available to any government entity for financing.
Yeah, and we're able to do that, and I didn't put that in there, but that is one of the options. It certainly is. The only element, of course, with a bond is that we have to make payments. So it, kind of demands success of that project and whoever we choose as a private investor to make sure that that project is successful, only because their payments are what would necessitate our ability to pay on that bond. We have some money in the bank, and we could maybe make some gap payments there, but it is something that we would have to consider. There's a little bit more risk associated with that, although there is a tremendous ability for that to pay off in a really, really high quality development, because it does open up the developer to more capital than they would perhaps otherwise be able to have access to. So you could have a really, really nice project out of that, but it does come with some risk.
My one concern with that, with selling the property, is that you're opening yourself up to having something there that may not be exactly what we're looking for downtown. I mean, you can't stop the people from putting something there that's already zoned for that particular thing. But with the police state, with the old police PD building at some point going to be, in there as well, I don't know, it just opens ourselves up to something that we may not want. It may not fit into your, to our downtown plan.
Yeah, so I mean, there are the town has created a lot of zoning conditions in terms of the development regulations for downtown. We have an overlay district with architectural requirements and site plan requirements of how the building is supposed to be positioned on the property. So I think that we wouldn't be totally unsatisfied with the building going there under just the town's base development regulations. But it's not, it may not be exactly and specifically what we are looking for. So it's not gonna guarantee that a restaurant goes in there or retail goes in there. You know, you may end up with a use that is less than, you know, it's allowed and it can happen in downtown, but it might be, you know, might be a doggy daycare that goes in there. Might be a really nice looking doggy daycare, you know, with parking in the back and a nice facade out front. But it may be a type of use that, you know, we're looking for something hyper-specific more than what our zoning would otherwise allow. And so a sale of the property, yeah, it does mean that that's a potential for occurring.
Well, then the other consideration would be to do nothing until the decision is made about the old police building.
I would recommend that course of action regardless of where you go, is what does council want to do with the police station property? Is there any interest in them dedicating that to the DDA if we go one of these two options? Or are they looking to just sell it on their own? Either case, if they're looking to sell it on their own or dedicate it to the DDA, I do think bundling that sale or making that kind of a bundled deal would be beneficial to both the town and the DDA. So,
I
I
agree.
or-
think
or
any
lease.
developer would be more interested in the double,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot you're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, that PD property technically, you know, separates from the park. I mean, from our lot, you can go out the back of the lot straight to the park, but, I mean, if I was a developer looking to buy a lot, if I found out that the PD could be going away at some point, I'd wait and wanna buy that. And put all my money into this lot, and then all of a sudden I find out, oh, they're tearing this down, I could have built there and made a lot more profit off the park, you know, so I think it's probably smart to do that.
Yeah, I think we can try and have some conversations with council to kind of reignite what their thoughts are about that property. Because I think regardless of what we do, either a ground lease, a bond, a straight sale, I think we would want to kind of have a little clearer picture about what's happening with the police station property. But yeah, those kind of three options, the bond included, I think are kind of the most viable directions forward for us. And it allows us to we can get started on any of those options kind of right away. There's not really a huge barrier to entry. Figuring out the terms of all of those, figuring out the terms of a bond, of a ground lease. I mean, there's work that needs to be done for all of those options, but they're all available to us and we have the resources to be able to pursue them.
Well, and talking about a ground lease, you know, from a lender's perspective, we don't like ground leases because you, as the tenant, don't own it, but yet you're putting all your money into a building and infrastructure. And so, you know, I don't know what the market would bear here for a ground lease. You know, you see it in out parcels, Publix, you know, big shopping centers. All of your fast foods operate off of a ground lease, but I don't know that that's really viable here. And I'm just speaking from what little bit I know, but, you know, if somebody's going to buy one lot and build, it's gonna be a small building, and a bond is not likely to be used in that situation because bonds are expensive. The process of getting a bond is expensive. But if you had two lots and a, you know, a little bit larger project, then that could very well, you know, whoever is the developer, whoever's obtaining the financing, you know, they're gonna go through a rigorous approval process anyway. So getting approved for the financing and the bond, it is gonna have to be somebody that's, you know,
Yeah.
pretty well qualified.
Yeah,
So-
and we would want to pursue that. The only other way to make a ground lease more attractive from a lender perspective is that maybe it's more of a lease-to-own type thing. There are terms
Yeah.
that end. And so that makes it a little bit more attractive to a lending institution to say, okay, well, it's really, you know, it's got a 20-year term to it or whatever, and at the end. Now, the thing that we have to consider with something like that is that it's no longer a non-taxable property. I think that triggers a lot of, use of rec laws and things like that, that we would need to make sure we're keeping track of. But, as long as that's all upfront in the terms of the lease and things like that, we could work through some of that.
Ally, what kind of flexibility does the board have in structuring the bid for the property if we were to combine the properties and sell them rather than lease? What flexibility does the board have in structuring the bids to pack it to where consideration is made for what the plan is for the property? In other words, you're not just selling the property for X amount of dollars, they can do whatever they want.
Right, I'm not sure you could deed restrict the property that way. You're gonna have to sell it for fair market value to the highest bidder, because it's government-controlled property. So as far as specifying a buyer, you're gonna run afoul of any kind of litigation for discrimination if you're not very careful.
I'm not talking about specifying a buyer, I'm not talking about going to a singular buyer. I'm saying
We only
this
want a buyer
property's, this
for a
property's for
restaurant.
sale.
Mhm.
As part of your bid to buy it, what is your plan for it? And then they consider it that way.
But they could change their.
Right.
They
there would be
could, but it gives
no-
you some level of,
It wouldn't be enforceable, because once they own it, they own it.
Right.
You can say that, but it's not,
Right.
it would be a very empty
I get it.
request.
I was just asking the question, just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
And deed restricting the property would be the other mechanism for that, but I don't.
Because we'd want to make sure that we still have public parking on the PD property.
Right,
for the
yeah,
park.
no, I
Oh.
would be suggesting that we carve out.
carve
the
that out,
developable
okay.
portions, that we keep
Right.
the park-
Right, you would need to keep whatever you want to keep and
Right.
not sell that. It would not be part of
Okay.
what was bid for sale.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but deed restrictions become tricky, I think. The only other way to do it is, it's pretty complicated, like you could do some sort of covenants and restrictions. It's a lot cleaner for us to do some of the other options.
And it's not,
Public-private partnerships, I've seen, I've seen in trainings and things that I've been in where cities, DDAs, whichever combination it might be, they have gone out and targeted specific types of development on their properties.
on the property that, assuming the property still belongs
Yes.
to us. Yes, you can do that. And then you become the ground lease. You just don't have that same tax exempt.
So that's generally under a ground lease.
Right,
Okay.
because you have to still own the property.
Okay.
You find a marketing team to go out there and find someone. Same thing with a seller. If we have somebody out there that we'd like to buy it, it's not like you couldn't talk to them about their interest and make them aware of what's for sale.
Right,
They just have to be the highest bidder.
okay.
I echo what Lucy said about the ground lease. It's, I know it's frowned upon as a lender, but we saw with Neighbors Restaurant,
Yeah.
their investor backed out because they didn't want to put that much money into a building they couldn't own, so
Unproven concept.
it's plausible. I just don't know if it would be the most likely option,
We spent a lot of time on that too, like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, we could look at a structured ground lease that ends attractive to a lender. It gives us the ability for that. We can just go that route. If we say, look, we don't have any interest, or, we've had people that have said we're interested, but then when they start part, we can try and go that route and see kind of where that leads us. Of course, it doesn't result in, any level of property.
Well,
but-
this is a pretty inexpensive property when you're looking at, you're gonna put $1 million+ into anything you build. 200,000, not, not that significant. So I don't know that the ground lease makes sense from that perspective. If it's, I guess I look at too many larger dollars, but as a percentage, for something that is, you're you're putting that much money into it, it's gotta be a concept that's going to take off. So it's, whether it's restaurant or whether it's office retail, I mean, you know, as we have seen, it's gotta be somebody that has the wherewithal. So, I don't know, I'm just thinking the cost of the property is not that substantial. It's not $1 million property that you're purchasing. It's relatively inexpensive.
All of these options we're considering precludes us from keeping that grant? You know, I mean, talk about leverage and talk about public-private partnership, I mean,
Oh, do we need a vote on this?
Yeah, I would like a vote eventually.
Because we've kind
on-
of skipped.
We did kind of skip down there, but it kind of makes sense that we would chat
Yeah.
maybe a little bit about this before making a
So,
It doesn't preclude us from requesting
future
grants down
Yeah.
the road.
The
That was-
grants are available to us on a continuing basis. Honestly, I mean, what would happen is we would probably forego this particular grant. Town would maybe pick up a grant opportunity for the park, and then after the town was done with that portion, then the grant would then be open again to either the town or the DDA to do something else. The grant is not, it doesn't go away completely as an option for us. And it can potentially be bundled with any of these directions that we go, maybe even the revolving loan fund. But yeah, the grant can be a part of that process. And perhaps the grant maybe, if we're able to get a grant that allows us to, you know, go after a bond with a little bit more comfort level,
Right.
perhaps, that's a possibility.
well, given the fact that we don't have a clear-cut plan at this point in time, and I think it's prudent that we, you know, we do give that money back and we start from scratch and start working on something else. But, so you do need a vote on that.
Yeah, I do need a vote on
Discontinue participation.
yeah,
So,
refund the money that they've given
right.
us, but that would be
So, the vote, you want that in two parts?
no,
Just one part? Okay, so we're looking to have a motion to discontinue the participation in the FCDA grant program for the Fire Station Development Project and return the $50,000 seed money that they have forwarded to us.
Make a motion.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Is there any more discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
all right.
Like just wincing.
Adam said, I don't want to give up the money.
No, we don't, but the option is, like they say, that we do have another option to get another loan going forward. So another grant, I should say. All right, so that passes. Philip, what else?
Well, we've kind of discussed the items that I had in staff comments. Is there a particular direction that you want me to have prepared for you at the next meeting as to what we would do with the property? Would you like me to have just maybe more detailed information on a revolving loan program or what's involved in
I think
that?
that would be, if that's going to be a discussion option, maybe some detail around how that is managed, at what level. Is it, you know, if you issue a grant to a business owner, is someone in the town managing those payments with the bank, or just sort of how it operates?
I would just suggest that we come back to you guys at the next meeting with a list of options, pros and cons, how everything pans out, you know, just a wide range of options for you guys to consider, both of the ground lease, selling the property, doing a revolving loan fund at some point with proceeds, and maybe even some initial feedback from council on the appetite for
Yeah, that
doing
would be
something
good.
with the police station property.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of any decision we make is what's happening with the police station property.
I know that's not on the agenda for this meeting, but is it possible that you could bring that up during staff comments, or?
Yeah, I can bring that up during staff comments, for sure. and then just kind of see where they want to go with it.
Do y'all get much interest? Has anybody come to the city, like, looking to buy property in the town?
We get it fairly frequently. I would say, in terms of the people that are interested in buying property, about 75% of them just want to do exterior RV storage.
Oh, yeah, it's,
And then about 25%, it's just about like, it might be more of something that we're interested in. I think if we're gonna be looking at, selling the property to somebody, not that you couldn't even do RV storage on that property.
no.
So even if it was sold, it's not something that would be truly viable. But I think we would want to make a concerted effort to investigate and pursue, people to be interested that would want to do something we would.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, the property across from the post office, I mean, that's been for sale as long as I can
Right.
remember. I know, the old diner, Shamrock, that property's for sale, and it's been for sale for a long time now, so I'm just trying to gauge how much interest there is in buying property here to do something.
I think the benefit of this property is that it doesn't have a building that has, limited
Needs to be
uses.
tore down
Yeah,
anyways.
it's not an unusual shape, and it's a large, that one corner piece there that you're talking about, Mr. Knowles' property, it's an odd L-shaped piece of property, it's pretty narrow, so wouldn't have a whole lot of flexibility of what you put there, so, and it's already connected to sewer, we've already got a sewer. So, I think there's maybe, this particular property has a little better shot
Okay.
than some of those others, but yeah, it's not exactly, fast moving in terms of private.
What is the
Private investment.
update on the post office?
Well,
It's almost done.
yeah, I mean,
Seriously, it's
Work.
almost done. I was just in there and they're waiting on some heating and air equipment, not from me, I lost the bid, but they're waiting on some barge units right now for the trailer out back, so, but the inside, the paint, the floor, it's almost done, so.
So it is legit gonna be a post office again?
At some point in the future.
It's a doggy daycare.
Yeah.
That's going up over there.
We got one behind Waffle House.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been curious about Shamrock Kitchen myself, that building is so tiny, it's almost, I think that's the reason the lot hasn't sold is because it's got like the junkyard across the street, they're trying to get commercial money for it with a house
Right.
on it, it's like pick a lane, and with Shamrock Kitchen, you got this tiny little building that's useless to an investor, it's, I think.
Can't get it up to code anyway.
I think
Yeah,
Shamrock
it-
Kitchen probably needs to be raised.
Owner should just
and,
demolish it and
sell the lot.
then try to sell it.
All of Tyrone's gonna be.
We can do this, though. We can get this going.
yeah, you just have to aggressively market whatever we wind up doing. Like,
Yes.
if the choice is to combine those lots and sell them, I think the difference in the other lots, the L-shaped lot and all that, because all of them could be sold. All of them have a buyer somewhere. They're just not aggressively trying to sell. I was talking to one of the Knowles the other day, and he actually brought up that piece of property. He asked if the town was interested in it. I said, no, we're not. But, I asked them if they had any interest, and they've had, I think the doggy daycare did want to go there. I think they've had a gas station that wanted to go there, and the L shape at the corner of Commerce and Sonora Road, yeah. He had asked me if something like a 7 Brew would go there, and I said, well, I don't think you can do a drive-through downtown. So they got ideas and they want to sell it. I just don't think they're aggressively trying to sell it. If they switched gears and said, we want to aggressively market this property, and same with us, if we wanted to aggressively market the Clark property, the junkyard, and these two pieces, I think we could make it happen. It's just a matter of, how we want to do it. I have seen cities or DDAs, whichever, where they've actually engaged with a architect or something to come up with renderings to say, this is what this could be. And I'm not suggesting that necessarily, I'm just saying that's something I've seen where it actually, sometimes it's hard for people to imagine something until they see it. So if they see this property with a type of building superimposed on it, that could help.
We
That could
do
help.
Picture
have
saves
that
1,000
from previous
words.
plans.
What's
Yeah,
that?
We do have that from previous plans that are not,
Yeah.
that do not use the old fire station building as
Yeah.
the rendering. We We have some old plans that show this property with a totally different and new building on it.
Yeah, and then there's two buildings on the property, one closer to the road, one further back in one of them.
Yeah, that's from the most recent plan, but we did have one prior to that that showed some, it was one that UGA did for the town.
Okay.
That showed a couple of properties with buildings on them that
Because at one point, we did discuss, maybe taking the money from the Development Authority, Fayette County, and doing a spec building there, and then building the spec, and then selling it or leasing it. But I don't think we have the money for that now.
We don't want to be in the spec business.
Other option of the people, the people
Yeah.
that were having that property.
They own that property behind,
Circa.
yeah.
they ended up selling that property. I don't think they're pursuing that.
I think the guy from Boss Concrete owns a couple acres behind there, does he
Yeah,
not?
He purchased it from them.
About a year ago, I spoke with a developer friend of mine, and Tommy Sweet. Okay. So I talked to Tommy about a year ago about the Clark property. I don't know, I think when around the time the town was purchasing that or acquiring it. Anyway, I remember the mayor had talked about, hey, we need to get some investor in here, go find somebody. So I called Tommy, and he listened, he heard me out and was in some ways interested, but he a little kind of off color, but it put things in perspective to me. It was a little brash what he said, but he said, I see a lot of small towns that think they want to do this. They don't really have the wherewithal to do it right now. And he said, maybe y'all get some projects done and talk to me again. But, that was just the feedback from and I'd say he's a decent sized developer,
Yeah, well, and most of his is single-family, mixed-use type.
Yeah, and I was specifically talking to Tommy about, somebody had thrown out the idea on the Clark property of a 3-story building
Yeah.
with
Townhomes.
loft on top, office in the middle, and retail on the bottom, and just a mixed-use facility. And he complimented the idea. He said those things are great right now, the mixed use. Concern was that maybe
There's not yet a draw.
not a draw
downtown.
yet. And I did tell him, I said, well, there are plans for Shamrock Park that'll start to create a draw. But that's just the feedback I got. There's developers out there smaller than him, and there's some that are bigger. He's kind of middle of the road, I'd say.
Excuse me.
Just wanted to offer that feedback on investment standpoint.
Well, and to that point, what your friend told you about as far as cities having the wherewithal, if you look at every city around us or just in general that has had a kind of a revival, they have done something that Tyrone hasn't done yet. Sonoa, they embraced the film industry.
Oh, yeah.
There's countless other examples of that though, but Hapeville, they embrace, they have the arts and they have, a lot of stuff going on downtown, but every single one of them has a type of nightlife, a draw that Tyrone so far doesn't have. And that's what we hoped Neighbors would bring, or something along those lines. That's what we hope that this project will be. It'll be the catalyst for that type of thing. The park's great. The park's going to be great. It's going to continue to be great, and it's going to get better. But it's still not going to have, in my opinion, the same type of draw that people are going to get in their car for or on a golf cart in the afternoon and say, let's go downtown. We have to create that, and that's what we've been trying to do. Yeah.
At least for a couple hours until somebody catches on, but.
Yeah, Tyrone has, one thing that it has always had going for it, and our citizens love, is the sleepiness of it, the quietness of it. But at the same time, it's kind of a detriment when you're talking about economic development and growth, because And also in the past, I mean, in that administration's past, we've developed a reputation where we're extremely difficult to deal with and we don't want growth. And now we're saying, whoa, we do want some growth. But some of the developers that were here then are still around. Or people who work for those developers are around. They're like, no, Tyrone, kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And we're trying to overcome that. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. But we have to get on board with thinking outside the box and doing some things outside of our comfort zone as a town in general. And we're starting to get there, but it's going to take a minute for us to get. But anyway, whatever we do here has got to be a catalyst.
A momentum that starts.
Yes.
How much does alcohol had to do with the catalyst in those other
Exactly.
towns?
100%. Of every downtown that you see, there is alcohol tied to it.
Yeah.
Whether you love it or you hate it.
Not that I'm
And
Well-
we can't,
opponent of that.
you can't have it in the,
They can have beer and wine at that lot,
Mhm.
but not whiskey. Hard.
and,
Well, I think that may change. That was because there was a school at the church.
Yeah.
There's not a school there any longer.
Oh, okay.
So that
didn't know
has
that.
changed a little
I
bit.
knew it had something to do with the
Well,
school.
they're still there, but I think at the end of the school year, they're going to Flat Creek over in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
I do think that
Yes, that was the cause, was that school.
yeah, and, we also, we don't allow microbreweries or anything like that. It has to be a restaurant, right? So, if you're a brew pub and you sell, food, you're a restaurant. So, there are a lot of those types of things that, we have as ordinances that, they serve a purpose that, getting to serve, but it also has, flip side of the coin. And, a lot of the mixed-use developers, they talk about financing things. A lot of that surrounds the amount of residential they're able to put on the lot. The amount of residential we allow doesn't really allow them to finance something. So it is one of those things where we're trying to thread the needle on something very specific. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to try. Yeah, it is gonna take whoever does something with this property, they are gonna kind of have to be the person that sticks their neck out just a little bit to kind of allow for the catalyst function to take.
Okay. Anything else? This is our time for our second public comment period. Seeing none, do we have any staff comments? Okay, any board comments?
I have a board comment. After Thanksgiving is the Christmas in the park, and so 7, I think we are. And the DDA is always, we run the cookie cabin. And so this year, there are no messy cookies. There is a messy craft. So if you want to pop in and, I know. So Billy was looking
Forget it.
forward to his messy cookies. If you would like to come and help anytime between 2 and 7, I'll be there. It would be great to see you. It's last year, how many people came through? Like 500. There were so many people. So it's a great opportunity to meet people, sticky kids, parents, yeah. So wear an apron because it's glue and ornaments and apparently, yeah.
We're still going to be in the cabin there.
The
Okay.
cookie cabin, that's
There you
right.
go. Okay.
And Philip has promised a DDA sign so that people will know who the fabulous runners of the craft are. Yeah. Yeah, so.
Okay. All righty. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Believe it or not, it's next
Thank
week.
you. Happy Thanksgiving.
It's kind of scary, but I hope everybody has a great holiday. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.